All right, let's get started. I'm going to finish setting up my palette here. And as I do that, I'm going to tell you about setting up the palette. One of the things that I do is I set up the palette in the same way each time. Here I'm going to be adding black, and this is Bone Black by Rublev. Most of the colors that I use are Rublev colors. Let's see here. This is Raw Umber. This is Ultramarine Blue. This is Transparent Oxide Red. This is a color called Tuscan Red, and it's a mixture of 3 pigments. Again, it's by Rublev. One of the things that I like about Rublev is that they put the pigment color down on it, so you know exactly what's in it. This one happens to be Red 83 or PR 83, and it's a combination of iron oxide and alizarin. So this is a Tuscan Red. It's and it means that it has a good light fastness. So it's going to be which pure alizarin is not light fast. This is Cadmium Red Light. This is that's a Gamblin color right there. This is Transparent Earth Orange. Sometimes I use Burnt Sienna. Let me find that yellow that I have. Here's the yellow. Is right here is Chromium Yellow Medium. I'm going to be moving to Cadmium Yellow Medium or Cadmium Yellow Dark. I'm moving to one of those. This one here is Cadmium Yellow Light. And then that far left yellow is Genuine Naples. That is from Rublev. Rublev does not call it Genuine Naples because it is Genuine Naples Yellow. With any other paint manufacturer, you do need to make sure that it says genuine in it, or else you're not getting Genuine Naples Yellow. Genuine Naples Yellow is, and I need to be getting another tube, is PY41, and you see it just says Naples Yellow. This is the only manufacturer that I know that when it says just Naples Yellow, it means Genuine Naples Yellow. This is my favorite color because it's so darn useful, and we're going to be using it on the eggs and the background. Now, Genuine Naples Yellow is $87 a tube. So this is not a one that I would recommend for a beginner. Okay, I keep going back and forth. Let me get settled here with you guys. Let me get settled and we can get down to business. All right, so let's get this started. What I like to do is, let me wipe the brush off. So I like to start with Raw Umber. Is where I like to start with. Over here, what I'm getting right now is Oleo Gel. It is silica, which is a clear, it's like glass, or a clear sand. And linseed oil, and it's just a gel. Means it's easy to use. It doesn't move around on my palette. And then this is, what is this? It's relatively new. Haven't been using it all that long. It's Impasto Putty, also by Rublev. Are y'all seeing a theme here? This right here. It's impasto putty. Okay. So the theme you should be seeing is that natural pigments or Rublev Color is my favorite color manufacturer. Now I sometimes do use others. I use primarily Michael Harding paints in my plein air kit. It's mainly because the colors are so buttery and they're consistent, and in their butteriness, and the colors are consistent across the pigment. So that means that the way that Michael Harding grinds it is he grinds the pigments to be consistent so that the pigments, when they come out to be a paint, are more similar to one another. What Rublev does is that Rublev grinds each pigment to be the ideal pigment to medium linseed oil or binder to the ideal ratio for that pigment. So some of the pigments are ground really fine, some of them are ground coarser, and every paint is going to feel a little bit different. And when I'm in the studio, I find that to be enjoyable. That's one of the parts that I love about painting. When I'm out in the field and I'm doing plein air painting, it's all about speed. And so I want, when I pick up a dab of paint wherever, I want it to be consistent each time. And that's what Michael Harding does for me. So that's why I use Michael Harding in my plein air kit. And sometimes I'll use it in the studio if it's out of a convenience. So if and this just happened, I ordered, I think, from Jerry's Artorama, and I needed a few colors. So instead of placing a separate order, but I needed panels, so ordered them from Jerry's Artorama, and instead of placing a second order to the natural pigments for just a couple of tubes of paint, what I went on ahead and did was got them from Jerry's. Alright, now what I've done is I've done the starting of getting the size and placement. I did thirds, and then the X, so I can know where the center is. And then lo and behold, what am I doing? I'm starting my biggest object right in the middle. I am breaking one of the fundamental rules of painting. Oh my goodness. What are y'all gonna do? What am I gonna do? I'm breaking a rule. Oh no. Well, that's one of the things that I wanted to talk with you guys about, is that you do need to learn what most artists think of as the rules, for the same reason you want to learn about any other rule, so you can know when to break the rules. And that's exactly what I'm doing here. I am doing painting, putting this right in the middle for a very specific reason. And because I'm being mindful about it. So I want to talk a little bit about mindfulness while we're painting, and so that you can learn about mindfulness. So mindfulness is, A, it's being aware of what you're doing and why you are doing it. It's being present in the moment. It is paying attention, but it's also questioning, like, why is there a rule that we need to not put something into the middle? And does that apply here? Well, we're going to figure this out. We're going to figure this out. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm just kind of massing things in. I'm just massing things in, and you saw me mass in the egg that's on the left-hand side of the bottle. And then I've done this very unusual thing where I kind of did a oblong box for 2 eggs, and that, I'm sure, looks odd. But what that is going to do is that when we draw that box like that, it helps to give us structure, and it tells our brain to paint it as if it is one object. And it is going to be much easier for us to paint it as if it is one object if we start it off as one object. Okay? All right. So that is our Massian. So now let's talk about, let's talk about mindfulness. And I'm going to get out my palette knife here for a second, and I'm going to be mixing up my background color here. And I want the kind of that red color of the eggs to kind of show forth, so, or come out. So I'd like to have a neutral green as a background, but more or less a neutral color. So I've got a lot of the black here, and I've got some raw umber. So I have 2 piles of paint. 1, 1. Now 1 plus 1 always equals 2. That's what we learned in school. Well, let's add a little bit more difficulty to that. Let's do this. Okay. Yeah, we have 3 piles of paint. So 1 plus 1 plus 1 equals 3. All right. Always, right? Not always. If you were to take 1 pile of laundry and add it to another pile of laundry, how many piles of laundry would you have? Similarly, if we added 3 piles of paint together, how many piles of paint do we now have? I'm going to let you ponder that for just a second. But part of being mindful is questioning. And so you are going to learn a lot of rules as you are embarking on this journey of being an artist. You are going to learn a lot of rules. And I want you to question those rules. I want you to ask why. Is that necessary? Now what you may see me doing is I'm kind of painting over the outline of this bottle. Well, Corey, why did you do that? You just went to such trouble to make sure you got a really good outline. Why are you now painting over it? Well, that's a good question. Now, speaking of questions, you can always ask me questions. And hopefully I will know the answer. No. I am almost always doing something for a reason. When I talk to my medical students, I tell them, yes, everything I do, there's a reason. Feel free to ask me. Sometimes if you were to ask me about why I do something in painting, I may not have the answer for you right then. I might need to stop and think and go, well, let me think about that. I'm not really sure why I did that. Let me stop and think. But I generally do have a reason for it. So feel free to always ask me why I did this or why I did that. And I'm going to try to, as we go along, try to tell you why I'm doing certain things the way that I'm doing them and so forth. I'm adding a little bit more of the Naples yellow over here. I'm going to add some white as well. I'm wanting to start to lighten it as we come up over here. Now back to why am I covering up this part of, why am I covering it up? Why am I painting over the edge of the bottle only to have to go back over it again at some other point in time in the future, right? Well, part of painting in Alla Prima is a back and forth, so that is part of it, and I'm aware of that. Part of that is the back and forth, the yin and the yang. So I guess accepted, that is a good word, right? I've accepted that that's just the way that things are in this world of painting, is that there will be a yin and yang. So accept it and use it. So in this world of yin and yang, I know that I'm going to be painting these edges and painting the background and then the edge of the object and going back and forth probably a couple of different times. So why not going ahead and get that out of the way now? Going ahead and get that first one out of the way. Just going ahead and do it. So that's part of it. The other part of it is that whatever you paint your background then becomes the color of the air. It then becomes the color of maybe not the value, but it does become the color of the air in the room, the air that is going to be surrounding your objects. And the key is surrounding. So it's the color of the air that is between your eyeballs and the objects. And it's not very perceptible. It is a little bit there, not... It's visible, but it is not visible, if that makes any sense. So it is the color of the air. So when we have an object like a bottle, and you know what is coming out at us is the closest to us, and then as the bottle turns, these edges over here are farther away from us because it's turning back. So there's more air between this edge of the bottle and our eyes than the center of the bottle and our eyes. So because of that reason, you should have a little bit more color of air on the outside of these objects, right? Where it's turning back. So what I've done is I have put on that outside edge, I've put the color of the air over the outside edge of the object, the bottle. And then I'm going to paint over that, the air, the background, with the color of the bottle. And the color of the bottle is going to mix in with the color of the air. It's not going to be a perceptible. It's not going to be like, oh, I can see what she did right there. But it's going to be there a little bit. So we're going to go back over here. And what I've done is I've mixed up a little bit of ultramarine blue with my bone black. Now most other manufacturers are going to call it ivory black. The blacks used to be made from burnt ivory. Now it's made from just bone. So what Rublev has done is they are naming it what it's actually made of now, not what it was historically made of. but it's essentially the same pigment that's in ivory black of all the other manufacturers. If that makes any sense. So, ivory black used to be made of burnt ivory, now it's made of burnt animal bone. So it's called Bone Black by Rublev. Okay, and I'm just going over. And I want to get a nice, good coating of this here. And I don't feel like it's thick enough, so I'm going to mix up a little bit more ultramarine blue and black. And now I'm going to work on the outer shape. So with a lot of objects, when we paint an object, we need to figure out what is the thing about that object that makes it easily recognizable as a thing, as that specific thing. And with bottles, one part of it is its outside shape. And does anyone know what this bottle started off as? This is a bottle of, used to house McCormick's Irish liqueur. So basically a cheaper version of Bailey's. But it makes for such a beautiful and really a simple bottle. Now I'm going to take some blue and just a little bit of white. And we're going to start that base of where the light is going to be. We want to make sure we've got a base for it. Got some right here. Okay. Now I'm going to go ahead and put the light on it. And you want to put the highlights on a corner. And you can see where here the light, the edge of it, of the bottle is turning up. That's what we're wanting. And then here is another kind of bend, there's a turn, it's another edge. Okay, now I'm going to get it here on the edge of it, of my palette knife. And we're just going to now these eggs are brown eggs. They're really a lovely, lovely color. Let's start with the shadow of each of these eggs. I'm going to start with some transparent oxide red and my alizarin equivalent, alizarin crimson equivalent, and I'm going to go with this darker yellow. This is the equivalent of cadmium yellow medium. And we've got a nice, warm, rich, dark color is what we've got here. So we're going to do okay, so we've got that. And let's mix up some tabletop color. And I like to get a really light color, kind of a mixture of whatever I've got going on here. I'm not too particular about it because I want it to have some of the green in it. I want it to have some of that orangey red color from the eggs. I want it to be just a little bit of everything that's going on in the painting. And I do want it to, my edge, table edge here to be kind of sort of straight, but I'm never really too picky about that. Sometimes I will take a T-square and try to make sure I've got it straight across, especially if I've got something like a napkin or a cloth that is interrupting it. If I don't do that, one side generally is going to be my right side. I generally kind of go down with my edges. My right side could be as much as a half an inch lower than my left side. So in cases like that, I do try to set myself up to succeed, but I'm not gonna be fussy about it, if that makes any sense. Like I try not to fuss about a lot of things. Try to keep things simple. And I haven't always done that. You know, when I first started painting, it was like the shiny bauble syndrome or whatever. Any new pretty paint, oh man, I had to have it. If I saw a artist painting with a color and they swore by it, I was like, oh man, that's amazing. I want that color too. So then I had to go and get that color. And I was spending a lot of money on paint because I was buying so many paints. And then I said, you know what, I've got to stop doing this. This is getting too expensive, right? And I don't think I was learning as much as I really should have by playing this kind of chasing the shiny object. I wasn't really learning anything either. So I disciplined myself and said, I'm going to have just one palette. So I found an artist that I respected and admired, held in high esteem, and I said, I'm going to use their palette. So that's what I did. So all that I did was I used their palette. And to this day, this is what I pretty much use. I use a different palette when I'm out plein air painting. I find that I need something simpler when I'm plein air painting, so I don't use this palette when I'm plein air painting. I use just a red, a blue, a white, maybe one convenience color, and then white, and that's all that I use. But yeah, I use this palette here. Sometimes I'll add in another blue, or I'll add in a green or a purple. Sometimes I'll switch out this color for burnt sienna. Sometimes I add in burnt umber, which is a warmer umber, and sometimes I'll add in a yellow ochre. But you can see I have a spot saved for it right here. But I don't really change this a whole lot, and I keep the layout, the palette the same way each time. Helps me to remember where everything is. Alright, so let's paint from these eggs from left to right, and what we're going to do is we're going to make the light tell a story, and it's going to move from left to right. Okay, so what we're going to do is have a little bit warmer, a little bit darker egg on the left. So that first egg is going to be a little bit warmer, a little bit darker. And I still want it to be, you know, have some light to it, but just not as much as these latter ones. Alright, that looks pretty good. Let's try that color out and see. I think that's going to work out nice. Yeah, I think it is. I think it's going to work out nice. So what I was doing was mixing my shadow egg color with my light egg color and trying to get this more to modulate that just a little bit. And we're going to add a little bit more Naples yellow here. Now, one thing I've not added yet is I've not added white yet. We're going to save white for the other eggs. Okay. I'm going to add a little bit more yellow to this color. And now we're going to add a little bit of white. Maybe a bit more white. And then let's try this color out for this egg here. And I made that color swatch, and I just wasn't really happy with it. So mix up something even lighter, and we're going to try it again. There, I'm happy with that now. And I'm just trying to feather this out just a little bit and getting a little bit more of making this the color for the value. Grade A, just a little bit more. This last egg here. And I may need to switch out to a smaller brush before too long. I don't know, may need to do that. Yeah, I think we're about ready for that step. Now putting this shadow back, trust me on this, it doesn't look like the shadow is really that dark. But what's going on there is a reflected light in there. That is what is going on and what is making that shadow look so much lighter. And I probably should have made this egg lighter to start with. So now I'm having to go back in and adding some more light to it. Still want there to be color, but we're going to have a lot of the color is going to be washed out on this egg in the light. Okay, and then we need to add just a little bit of a highlight here. Now this being the cast shadow is going to be darker. Now then, let's have some fun. Who's ready to have some fun? Going to add in the having a little bit right here. I'm adding in reflected light. I may not have actually said reflected light. Okay, so I can see we've got a bit of a problem here. it's one that is easily fixable. So what I wanted it to see is I wanted that edge to be clearly over the edge in the edge of the egg. So I wanted that to be clearly over the bottle, to be over the edge of the egg clearly. So I think we've got that now. We've got a little bit of a hump. Let's kind of fix that. Okay. Now, as I promised, the fun part. So we're mixing up kind of that light egg color again. And we're going to put it over here. And over there. And then we've got that tabletop. So let's do this tabletop color. Okay, so let's make sure we've got no UFOs. What are UFOs? Ungrounded floating objects in a painting. I want to make sure that every object is grounded and looks like it has at least some weight to it, right? Even we had a cloth in here, even a cloth would have a little bit of weight to it, right? Now, if you want the eggs to appear really light, really heavy, you're going to paint the shadows a bit darker if you wanted to give them a bit more heft. You would paint the shadows on the eggs a bit darker. Okay, now I'm just kind of cleaning things up. See, we're doing the back and forth now, right? And that is normal. And when you're starting out, it's going to be normal that you'll probably have a little bit more. That is also normal. And anytime you think you have a quote-unquote mistake, think of it as if it is a happy accident. I think, you know, what would Bob Ross do? How would Bob Ross handle this? I like to ask myself, what would Ellen Langer do? If you don't know Ellen Langer, she is the mother of mindfulness. She is the person who discovered mindfulness. She was actually trying to research something else and then ended up kind of serendipitously finding this and realizing this was going to be much more interesting and much more valuable than what she had planned on doing. And so she has spent her whole career researching mindfulness. She is to mindfulness what Brené Brown is to vulnerability. Now this shadow here, I'm keeping that sharp, and I'm going to try to make this one softer. And this is what is so much fun and at the same time infuriating about eggs. They can be so much fun and so frustrating to paint all at the same time. Any little change you make, shadow and everything, changes everything else. So when you're painting eggs, make a change, stop, come back and look at it, and then before you make another change. Okay, so this is basically now I could keep fiddling with this. But this is basically a very simple painting. It is simple in that it is 3 eggs and a solid black bottle. And we've got it set up here where we have some nice reflected light on it, and we've got this kind of bloom, I guess you could call it, around the highlight. If we wanted to put some up here, we could do some up here too. So, very, very simple shaped black bottle. The eggs are deceptively simple. They can be quite a bit of a challenge, but they are fun, and in painting them, what is challenging will also be not terribly complicated. So yes, it's a challenge, but it's not terribly complicated. Now, if this is your first time to paint eggs, it may take you a few tries. That is fine. That is perfectly fine. If you want to give it a whirl and you're not happy with it, you can scrape it off and you can try it again, or you can pick up a new panel and try it again. But it is a fun lesson, and it's definitely a fun painting, and you can come back to this and paint the eggs again and again and again and again. And each time you paint eggs, you are going to find something a little bit different, and you'll see something different in them, and you'll learn something else. So eggs are a wonderful lesson it's a lesson that keeps on giving, and you can learn something your entire career from painting eggs. You don't have to use brown eggs, you can paint white eggs, but I do encourage you to go ahead and give this a try and to have fun while you do this. And to remember that part of being mindful is questioning. Questioning, why is there a rule that we can't put something in the direct center? And how many piles of paint do we have if we add 1 + 1 piles of paint? Do we have 2 piles of paint, or do we still have 1 pile of paint? Okay, leaving this with you guys. Enjoy, and look forward to seeing your creations in class. All right, talk soon.